Hey, I'm Rob.
And I'm Mike.
And we're just two normal lads exploring the mysterious, the controversial, and the conspiratorial.
Join us each week down the rabbit hole for our latest exciting discussions, ideas, and tinfoil banter.
Tinfoil Banter. Serious questions, questionable conclusions.
I got a little alien guy.
Tilt him forward so we can see him. Because maybe it's shining.
I don't think he's like proper like glued on there, like blue tack. Yeah,
he's proper glued on then with blue tack. He's basically welded.
He's basically part of the mic stand.
Okay.
It says you're the best thing ever, the best thing I've ever found on Earth. This is your reminder.
Nice. All I've got is polos. I could put polos on.
Minty fresh.
Yeah, it's not as good as your alien.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have got something. I don't know.
What's that guy? Oh, they fucking. That's brilliant. Oh, that's good shit. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 9 of Tinfoil Banter. Today we're going to be talking about chemtrails, one of the Hall of Famers of conspiracy theories. And today we're going to be looking at the scientific and historical surroundings of chemtrails, weather manipulation, and chemical warfare. Mike, what do you know about chemtrails?
Not much, but I think everyone has always looked up to the sky and seen the planes flying over and those white lines floating on behind them and wondered what they are.
Mm-hmm.
What would they be dropping? Obviously, it could be a chemical, it could be bacteria, it could be anything.
Even if it's just exhaust fumes, is that bad for you as well? You know, like there's some questions around that.
And is that the bigger thing really to be worried about?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so do you know when the sort of chemtrails sort of started first being spoken about?
Bacteriological warfare could be a major threat to North America, and there was this chap called Larry Wayne Harris. Now, he was arrested for posing as a scientist and stealing plague bacteria. Him and his neighbor, Richard Finke, started an anti-biowar consulting company, and they started selling a product that would help you defend yourself from a type of attack like this. So this was in 1997. Richard Finke, the neighbor of Larry Wayne Harris, was discovered to be sending email chains, which is apparently the way that you spread misinformation. These chains were found with this misinformation on about planes spreading ethylene dibromide on a daily basis. But as it turns out, he made up the whole story to drum up business for the consulting firm that he and his neighbor established. No Google or Wikipedia or fact-checking whatsoever was in these email chains. And the initial message sparked conspiracies around chemtrails. So it could be a mid-1990s sort of thing. Based around the internet and how you can spread information worldwide through the internet.
Exactly. I mean, we talk about it a lot now, but it was happening back then. That email chains were like how things were spread back then. And I kind of remember it, but like I was a bit young. But I still remember them sort of being a thing later before social media. But they were kind of something you like laughed about. But they were a real thing. People were like seeing this and forwarding it onto all of their email friends, right? That was the idea. You're encouraged to like forward to all, and they did. It just spread like wildfire, a bit like social media does right in our brains now. But hey, that's a different topic completely. But
imagine the effort you have to go through to make an email chain compared to the WhatsApp and Facebook that we've got now.
It's like people making a meme now, though, isn't it? It's like there's just the equivalent of like killing time to like use this new thing, which was the internet at the time and emails, right? Like this was all kind of new, so people are like using that to like, what can I do here en masse to make?
I mean, essentially, it's marketing because he was marketing this product that he had. So
yeah,
there was a lot of effort, but at the end of it, there was a payout.
But yeah, like this was one of the earliest records of the word chemtrails. They were the ones that kind of put it out there initially. There was another guy called William Thomas who wrote a journal and interviewed like chemtrail theorists and stuff like that. And he met an engineering tech who had like worked at an airport, and he was collecting what he claimed was residue from like the exhaust fumes. So it was landing in like the fields, and he was collecting like the plants with that residue on it. And they were like, he was saying that there's like cobwebby substance was causing sinus infections and illnesses in areas. And there wasn't really any expert evidence around it. But there's a lot of questions around how they might have captured those soil samples and maybe what containers they were in. They were claiming there was like metal in there, but if you've been storing it in a mason jar, then you're going to get metal from the lid. And so there's a lot of interesting but questionable points around, again, this journal that was written around this journalist who was writing journals about chemtrails back in the later 90s. That one is, and again, just another example how perhaps misinformation could lead people to understanding something that maybe isn't necessarily true, and that becoming a widespread thing. And we mentioned like this being a Hall of Famer, but apparently in America, like 28% of people believe that the government is spraying stuff on them, right? And that what they mean is from like the daily planes, right? And we'll talk a bit more about why people think that way. And I think it always comes down to no smoke without fire sometimes, because the fact of the matter is governments have, and probably will again in the future, used chemical warfare, and that has involved dropping awful stuff onto civilians and crops and terrible stuff like that.
Crop dusting. Have you ever had that thought in your head about chemtrails?
Have I ever looked at it and thought,
yeah,
there was something that I saw personally where it lingered for so long, it made me question what was different about it. And when I looked at it at the time, I found out what I've also found out again recently by researching it. There's a reason why it lingers, and actually it's allegedly to do with the humidity, to make sense, which makes a lot of sense, because I do remember it being a really hot summer's day and it just lingered for what felt like hours. But yeah, it's the humidity, which we'll talk about later. It doesn't necessarily mean there's not chemical in it, but anything would probably linger for longer if it was a hot summer's day. So going back to chemical warfare, there's a lot of historical things that have happened where chemicals have been dropped on civilians. Vietnam War, we spoke about a little bit in previous podcasts. I think, isn't it the Agent Orange,
yeah,
which is like a great metal band, but that side, awful. It was supposed to kill like the crops and stuff, but it killed like it like made people like really unwell, caused birth defects, caused cancer, and they think it's something like 3 million Vietnamese and 100,000 US soldiers have submitted claims against Agent Orange specifically. And that was
so
just
it was a slow burner. It wasn't like a mustard gas situation.
100%. Like, I don't think they really realized how bad it was. And before that as well, it was actually tested on civilians by being sprayed over a university in Hawaii. It's a well-documented fact. The US government was sued by the Hawaii University. And again, they claim ignorance. We didn't realize what it was, but that was ultimately a test that led to maybe not Agent Orange itself, but a actual test of dropping chemicals. And then it even goes even further back than that. In the 1950s, there was the LAC, where they basically tested the effectiveness of chemical weapons. So they were just basically trying to work out the dispersal rate. And they did it over a whole part of Midwest America. And inside that was zinc cadmium sulfide, which at the time, they didn't know had a health risk, but it was later to be found to have like quite a lot of health concerns. Now, they were attempted to be sued, but they claimed the amount that would have been in the air was not enough to actually cause real illness. And I don't think there's ever been any like confirmed evidence that there was like a result of illness was a result of that. But the fact of the matter is, they did it not fully knowing what they were dropping and not fully knowing the results.
That's for like an asbestos situation.
100%. Yeah. Which but the difference is the asbestos, is a bit more involved. You're a bit more involved when you can't help what's being sprayed above your head.
Yeah. Well, they were using it on the Wizard of Oz to use it as fake snow. No one there.
We'll definitely do an episode on the Wizard of Oz for sure, because there's loads of cruel stuff around that film. But
asbestos was definitely one of them, and it's still used around. Well, it's not used anymore. It's been banned, but you've got to get it removed from houses.
Yeah,
And it's in the lofts, it's in the floors, it's everywhere.
boilers. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't get you don't know the long-term effects. But then saying that, I've got a vape in my hand, and the
Mhm.
information on this is still short-term.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. I've also got one on. I don't really believe that it's any less or worse than smoking. It could be worse in ways we don't even know. So that's a
Yeah.
different subject completely. But coming back to
Just go for a walk
yeah,
sometimes with it about these
yeah,
things. Just
yeah,
go for a walk with
absolutely.
it.
Go for a walk with it. So a couple of things about those awful incidents I mentioned. Obviously, the last one that we know about was in Vietnam, and in 1976, the UN actually banned environmental modification as a war tactic, and that included spraying herbicides. So that actually covered a few things as well. It also covered controlling the weather, which is another topic we'll talk about in a second. But it's worth noting that all of those instances where they did drop chemicals, the planes had to be at extremely low altitudes to be able to do that, right? So that is different to a plane flying high up in the sky in like 40,000 feet or whatever, which are supposed to be the ones that are dropping chemicals, thus the chemtrails theory, right? Not the same thing. So just worth noting there's a difference there, but it does give people a reason to like start doubting what they're told, right? Like, oh yeah, you're telling me there's no chemicals coming out of that 747 going to
And there's some
Bucharest, but
famous believers of these things. One of them was Prince.
100%. Yeah, and yeah, and again, that could be a result of misinformation, but it also is more a result of distrust in the establishment, right? I
It
think
would be Purple Rain if it.
yeah. If you see, maybe he did see Purple Rain. And he was like, "Chemtrails are real. I'm going to write a song
Yeah.
about that."
No, he definitely did, but it was just an irony that he then released Purple Rain.
Yeah, maybe it was this little nod.
A little nod to the government, probably the
Yeah.
CIA. It's always the CIA.
So whilst we don't think they've used chemical warfare in a long time, controlling the weather, which is kind of a similar subject,
Yeah.
because some of the conspiracies around chemtrails is that it's controlling the weather for certain reasons. There's a big breakdown of how these things actually build in together for the real chemtrail conspiracy theorists, and I'll kind of break that down at the end. But part of that is controlling the weather as well. Now it's actually no secret this has existed since like 1940, which I didn't realize it was so long ago, but I did know it was a thing. Like, and that includes like increasing rainfall and trying to reduce rainfall, right?
Yes.
So they basically put silver iodide into the clouds, and it freezes the water droplets. It turns them into ice crystals and makes them heavy in the air around them. Then they fall and they heat up, and it turns into rain. And that's how they do it. So they might want to freeze it up just before it drops over a city, and then it will release outside of it. Or they might have a drought and have a tiny little cloud that they want to make rain. And the important part being that I think there has to be a cloud. They can't just make a cloud out of thin air.
So is this the one that's called cloud seeding?
Cloud seeding, exactly that.
Cloud seeding.
Yeah, and that's a real thing. 52 countries take part in increasing and decreasing rainfall.
How do you decrease it? Scientist Rob, tell me.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I think it's like a temporary thing, right? You freeze it over the area you don't want it to happen, but then ultimately it's going to release later. It's like a delayed effect, I think, more than stopping it rain completely. I'm not sure if it disperses the clouds if you do it in certain ways, but the way you increase the rainfall is as I explained before, which is the silver iodide. Yeah, so only there's actually a really famous case of it working. It's Beijing Olympics, by the way. They did this over the Olympic Stadium. The rest of Beijing rained like for a lot of the week, and the stadium remained dry for the whole time. They also used to clear smog as well in China. And when I went to Beijing, I can confirm that the smog that I had heard about, I would see, I couldn't see it at all. And I was there in like the middle of a week, and I expected to see the smog, but maybe they were using that to clear it up.
Good compliant communist smog. It does what the party tells it to do and gets out of the way.
Yeah. So there's actually been a tragedy though around this as well, right? It's not like this. With great power comes great responsibility with all these things, right? Like you're controlling the weather. So in 1952, they started trying to work out how to do it as like a weapon, sort of creating it rain on command during wartime. The idea being that they would like control the movement of armies and block roads and stuff with rainfall. And it was actually denied. It was denied for decades that they were ever doing it. It was only in 2001 when a BBC actually undiscovered documents and broadcasts about it. So they were kind of a bit ashamed of it.
Yeah, this is the only one that I know of before coming into this was the RAF's cloud seeding, creating probably one of the worst sort of flash flooding events on the south coast. And if you go online on YouTube, you can look up the BBC sort of reports of when it happened. And from my knowledge and being confirmed by the notes was that the RAF was in the area at the time doing experiments on cloud seeding at the time. And so maybe they weren't directly responsible. They are maybe in a part responsible for causing one of the worst flash floodings.
Very hard
in
to
the
know
area.
what would have happened if they weren't there, right? Like maybe they
Yeah.
reduced it, maybe they made it worse. Ultimately, 35 people died in the small coastal village, Lynmouth, I think it is, in Northumberland.
Lynmouth, yeah. So yeah, if you look up Lynmouth flood, you'll see how bad it was.
Yeah. So like controlling the weather sounds great, but like it has dire consequences, or at least for us to fully understand it has had. That doesn't mean it can't happen again, right? The weather can be unpredictable. Mother Nature is not a beast you can tame. She tames us, right? Like, and so we should respect that. And if you try and control that, that can only go bad, And we've got some crazy weather right now in the UK. It's very hot right now, so something's going on. Climate crisis aside, like something's unsettled, I would say.
Yeah, the world's going to churn us up and then spit us back out again. The world will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Also worth noting that in 1978, the UN also prohibited the release of the use of cloud seeding in a military or hostile environment. So they also banned that around the same time as
It depends on what army you're facing. If you're facing the British Army, they're going to be used to the rain.
Oh, what a bit of rain! Oh,
no.
Yeah, but our
soggy feet.
trains will be fucked though.
Yeah,
Sorry to
yeah.
get
It
it, man,
depends
but
what army you're facing. If you're facing an army that's not used to it, then it would be effective. Otherwise, like the Navy, they're going to be fine with it.
And also, as time's moved on since Second World War, when the weather could have been probably a little bit more impactful, communications to some of the more primitive
Unless you can
aircraft.
create a thunderstorm and lightning
Right.
and stuff. What else can you, apart from rain, what else could you create? What kind of weather could you create?
As far as I'm aware, it's only like rainstorm. But then I guess I think because thunder and lightning occurs in a different scenario, something to do with hot and cold, I think. I can't exactly remember. But I think all we're really talking about here is controlling the weather via increasing ice crystals in the clouds and delaying or increasing rainfall that would have been maybe smaller.
Yeah, it's just a lot of effort to go to make drizzle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But yeah, interesting points. Like that's pretty wild. It's something we can do in 2025. There's also a paper written in 1996 called Weather as a Force Multiplier, and they basically predicted, based on technology today and the rate in which it was expanding, that technology could be used to control the weather by 2025. So I think we probably hit that pretty early on. But it sounds stuff they were already doing that in the 50s, but we didn't know about some of this until 2001. So chemtrail conspiracies, right? How did this all feed into like the conspiracy side of things? So we know some of this stuff is possible. We understand that there's been chemical warfare, which gives the doubt. But why do you think? Let's say the government are dropping a chemical on us. Why do you think that might be?
Well, it's either to chill us out, to make us more violent, or to control us.
Well, what if it's all of those things? So
yeah,
I said there was like one I read about the other day. It's like a multi-layered one. So they think that like it's basically weather manipulation is being controlled by the global elite or the one world government, right? To first of all destroy the ozone, so they can bring in carbon control. Well, check, that's the thing right now, right? Kill crops with the chemical warfare to drive up the prices and replace small farms with mega corporations. To make everyone sick and docile so that we don't revolt, inject nanoparticles to control our minds. And all of those things will lead into the eventuality that is the one world government, where everyone is a zombie to the global elite. Thought-provoking.
It is thought-provoking. Surely there's easier ways of doing it. I mean, they removed lead from petrol, and the incidences of violent crime went down because obviously, I think with like lead poisoning, low dosage, long exposure lead poisoning.
That's the opposite.
Taken that out. Yeah, they've taken it out.
Yeah, they could just be. Yeah, what you're saying, they could just poison the water supply.
Could do water supply. But then there's every the only problem with it is that everyone breathes the air, so they'd be doing it to themselves.
That's true. That's a really good point, actually. I've never really thought about that. Like, you're not just in a bubble because you're the global elite, but maybe they're like, interesting counterpoint there, Mike. I hadn't really even thought about that.
They're doing it to their friends and families.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah,
unless it's one nation against another. But even then, when you look at like the Chernobyl fallout, a lot of that ended up in Wales. What
if they could do it in a more concentrated way, though? I mean, do you know what HAARP is? HAARP.
I heard the acronym.
It stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, and the idea is, I think they're supposed to just be sending radio waves up there to like monitor stuff. So, as far as they claim, they are not affecting the atmosphere, right? Their conspiracy says that with that and some of the cloud seeding, that what they're actually doing is like maybe even like doing, like you said, making thunderstorms and
the cool ones, not just drizzle.
More focal like effect, where it would just be a town, or so it's not so widespread. Because like you said, the chemtrails, it's actually interesting, but scientifically, chemtrails that drop mostly don't come to the people below. Apparently it gets caught in a drift, and a lot of it goes towards the southern hemisphere, like kind of downwind, which means actually a lot of the deaths from carbon emissions from air vehicles, which I think is quite a high percentage, is because they're kind of getting ours as well, as their own carbon emissions. So
it depends on where the wind's going.
Not necessarily. I think it's more to do with the Earth spinning and the way that it's going towards the center of the Earth, I think, where it's warmest, something like that. I think it was, because obviously the poles are the coldest points.
Bit difficult when the Earth's flat, Rob.
Yeah. Where do the emissions go then? They just float up. But yeah, so the idea being with HAARP and the cloud seeding, they can then just affect a town, but maybe go beyond that and do other things with the high frequency control and stuff like that.
I do like the idea of being able to conjure up a tornado or a twister. A tornado is a twister, isn't it? A hurricane is just normal wind, but a tornado is the twisty one.
I've never really understood that. There's also typhoon, which is I usually think is usually out in the water, but I'm not sure. Or is that just a storm? I don't know. We need to research on storms. There is actually an interesting story from 2008. So an awful earthquake in China in 2008. It killed 69,000 people. 4.8 million people were homeless. It's the 21st deadliest of all time on record, right? And the day before the earthquake, satellites in Taiwan noticed a 50% drop in energy in the ionosphere above the province. 30 minutes before that, lights and rainbow stripes were seen in the sky, kind of like the Northern Lights, but they're never seen in that part of the world. And it was later determined to be something called a circumhorizontal arc, where the sun hits like ice crystals in a certain way. That was the claim. And apparently those things do happen, but there's no connection between earthquakes and those, as far as we're aware.
It was the Taiwanese blaming the Chinese.
Well, it gets worse than that. Putin traveled to France. He warns the EU that the earthquake in China was caused by the US. He said the same. But bear in mind, Putin's also said JFK was assassinated by the CIA, that the US staged 9/11, that they had to invade the Middle East, and that they spread HIV as a bioweapon. So Putin's
Oh, HIV is a bioweapon.
Putin. We need Putin on this podcast.
Yeah. I'll have to send him a message.
Yeah, so he's been dropping verbal bombs for a while about the US. So whether you believe some of those or not, but he was the one to call it out. Also, Hugo Chavez, who also hasn't been the biggest fan of the US, also claimed that the earthquake in Haiti was caused by the US. But yeah.
That would be tectonic, though. Surely it wouldn't be atmospheric. It'd be going on good old Earth.
Well, we don't know, do we? I don't actually really fully understand how cloud seeding and HARP can work together to cause hurricanes and earthquakes and things like that. Maybe that's the thing, but that's what the conspiracy suggests anyway. And there is some interesting stories to kind of give fuel for the fire, right? So lots of interesting stuff there. By the way, you know that I said about those like rainbow arcs called circumhorizontal arcs?
Yes.
Apparently, those same things do happen in Alaska, where the HARP station is. So that's another thing that kind of links it to the conspiracy. So all quite compelling, but I'm not fully convinced, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, what do you think so far?
They have in the past been doing some nefarious things with airborne particles dropped from aircraft, be that cloud seeding or Agent Orange sort of chemical warfare. Is a commercial jetliner dropping these things? Probably not.
Yeah, I think kind of that's where I stand too. Like you said, if there'd be easy ways and more subtle ways of doing it. So officially, chemtrails don't really exist. In fact, they call them contrails, which stands for condensation trails, and it's basically just the water cycle, right? So jet engine burns fuel, that turns into gas and water vapor and carbon dioxide. The hydrogen from that fuel combines with oxygen from the air to form water, and then the very hot exhausts get basically moist. That kind of leaves the engine where it's extremely hot into the extremely cold atmosphere, because often around -40 to -60, that far up. And it basically turns into ice and then kind of floats through the atmosphere and becomes that white streak. And that is the official explanation of what happens and why we see the contrails. And I mentioned before, the reason sometimes they linger and don't linger is because of humidity. Okay. Also, really interesting note, clouds are wild. So clouds can be massive. You think of a cloud as like this fluffy thing. They can be like something like 3.24 million metric tons. It's I don't really fully understand it. I guess it's because they're so large. If you were to condense them, they weigh the same as like 80 African elephants. These are some of the bigger ones, right?
Some of the bigger ones, but still lighter than air when you spread them out.
Like air. Yeah, so that's really a really interesting side point that I kind of went on a little side quest about. But yeah, so obviously the only thing I felt here was like, okay, that's all well and good. You're saying it's water, but it's not just water, is it? Like there's carbon dioxide in there, there's nitrogen oxide, there's sulfur in there. Now, apparently, the environmental problem, that obviously no one's suggesting that planes don't add to the environmental issues in terms of adding carbon to the atmosphere, but they claim it has quite a minimal health risk, because most of the time the plane is in atmosphere where it doesn't actually land on Earth. It kind of just stays in like a cycle, because something to do with the heat. I think it gets too warm and it kind of then turns into a gas and floats back up. So all that nasty stuff isn't necessarily getting rained down on us. It's actually only on takeoff and landing that happens. And that's the only time they measure these emissions, by the way, which I thought was quite odd. They only measure when they take off and land.
I remember
when it's in the sky.
In the newspaper talking about Heathrow Airport, that one of the jetliners taking off is equivalent to 4 cars driving around central London for 4 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Why didn't you say 1 car driving around for 16 hours? I don't know. They did divide it by 4.
Yeah, if you're gonna go down the car route, make it more cars and less time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Pick a side.
Yeah.
So apparently they think 3.7% of man-made climate change is from aviation, which is quite a big number. And a lot of that's to do with like additional cloud coverage as well, because these cause more clouds, right? Because it's in that part of the atmosphere. And so the point being that, yes, we're aware there's harmful parts of aviation, but it's no worse than all the other stuff that's going on around the world. And that there's not really any reason to suggest that they're dropping other stuff within that. As much as there are obviously reported illnesses and deaths, apparently it's like 8,000 a year people die from like emissions. That
Yeah, it's the asthmatics.
also certain parts of the world have more ammonia apparently above them, and it's the mix of that as well kind of makes it worse. And again, it's a lot of Southeast Asia, China, India, places like that are impacted. And as I said, they're also downwind of it. So those guys are impacted the most from the world's collective aviation output. So yeah, I feel like I can see why people go down this route. I think you kind of summed it up earlier when you said, well, they would just drop it on everyone if they were coming out all the 747s. I think it is possible for them to do something like that. And I really liked the attempt that someone went to of combining all of these things to make this multi-layered one world government thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not above that being a thing. I just don't think chemtrails comes into that. I just feel like there's easy ways of doing it, like you said.
Yeah, this isn't the method they'd use to get their nefarious outcomes. Yeah, it's not from chemtrails.
Yeah, so I think I'll give us like a 2 out of 10. It was pretty imaginative. I enjoyed it. I didn't really believe it going in. I didn't believe it coming out, but I get how people go and put 2 and 2 make 5, because that one is usually the CIA. So that's about it, really. But
yeah, I totally agree.
Fun one. Anyway, until next time, Mike, I think we can give it a little bow there, right?
Yeah. What are we doing next week?
Well, I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but I know we'll just say we're going to do.
Yeah, why not?
Well, we're going to do Bermuda Triangle.
Hey.
How about that?
Yeah, why not? That sounds like a good one.
All right, tune in next week, whenever that's going to be, for the Bermuda Triangle, episode 10. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.